Hello and welcome back to Radio Free Urbanism. I am your host, Alex Williams, and this is a podcast where we talk about urbanism and stuff. I'm joined by two delightful co-hosts today. We've got our regular Nic Laporte. Say hi, Nic.
Hello and welcome back, Alex.
Thanks for welcoming me back. And we also want to welcome back Arden English, who is from the Greater Discussions out there in Vancouver as well. How are you doing, Arden?
I am thrilled to be back. It is incredible how much less stressed I am coming on a second time.
Yeah, it's the first time you do anything, you're kind of a little nerve-wracking, and then you realize it's not scary at all.
It was my first podcast experience, point blank. So, it was a whole thing in and of itself. But hey, now we're good. We're good. We're professional with this now.
Yeah, we are super professional. You got a sweet mic, and just a heads up for everybody, I am sick. I came back from this trip with a cold, and so I'm a little under the weather. I'll make sure to mute myself if I cough at all, so that doesn't assault your ears. But in the meantime, let's start off with a little chancy dancy do. Nic, have you got an update?
I do. I think I do. I'm pretty sure. Oh, yeah. I released a video last night. Super quick. I put it together in 2 days, which is like lightning speed for me. Usually it's at least 2 weeks of planning, prepping, filming, editing. I literally, in the morning on Sunday, was like, hey, to my wife, do you want to go? We can go bike around and find these Vancouver signs, the Swift-Couver signs, in preparation of Taylor Swift coming to town for her last stop of the Eras tour. And she's like, yeah. So then we went out, we did it. I somehow came up with all of these references to her songs, probably because I know a lot of them. I'm a fan. And then put it together in 2 days and just sent it out, which was crazy. But the whole point is I want to talk a little bit about what's happening here. This is crazy. This is wild, guys. When was the last time we had something this massive happening, as far as a concert? She's been doing this for 3 years. This tour's been going on for ages. But was it Michael Jackson?
I wasn't alive. I can't comment.
Yeah, I'm not a concert guy.
No, but
I've only ever been to small local basement of bars kind of concerts before.
Those are very good ones. Those are some of my favorite. Yeah, absolutely. But what I'm thinking about is how many people are going to be coming to the downtown core. I don't think it's that different. People are acting like this is going to be the apocalypse as far as traffic goes. I'm like, guys, come on. We have shutdowns all the time. We have giant shows that happen at BC Place all the time. I've been to some completely sold out, massive shows. I don't think it's going to be as crazy as people are saying. But most people are complaining just about having to drive and park. I'm like, you don't have to. That's the amazing part about being in Vancouver. You can take the train. You can get on a bike. You can walk. So suck it. That's it.
Probably the next biggest... Oh, sorry, Alex.
No, go for it, Arden.
Well, it's probably the next biggest thing we've had since, I want to say, the Olympics, maybe? Would that be?
Probably. Yeah. It is.
Right?
It's. I'm not going to deny this is massive. It's huge, and there's going to be more people outside the arena as opposed to other shows.
Right.
I don't know. I went to the Red Hot Chili Peppers at BC Place, the same arena, right? And it was packed. It was crazy. But it is different. 3 shows in a row. It's going to be a bigger thing. But again, I don't know. I'll let you know. We'll update next week because I'm going to go check it out at least around the arena. Unfortunately, I'm not going to the show or any of them.
Sad Nic.
Unless somebody wants to give me $4,000 so I can buy a ticket to be behind the stage.
Literally insane.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, that is exciting. It's nice to have transportation options. I think about that. I think I've told this story on the show before. And Austin says, you folks just had the Grey Cup Festival. That wasn't big enough. For people who don't know, the Grey Cup is Canada's Super Bowl, but it's much smaller of a deal.
Bigger.
And the Arkells played the halftime show. And I love the Arkells, but
yeah.
Do people in America know the Arkells? They're this generation.
Jonas Brothers too, right?
Did the Jonas Brothers play? I don't even know. Anyway, maybe you're right. Maybe it was them instead.
It was the Jonas Brothers, yeah.
Yeah.
Arkells were just in town for a show last week. I confused them anyway.
Huge deal. Yeah, what was... Oh, yeah, having, multiple transit options to get around. Yeah, I forgive you, Austin. And by the way, if you're in the live chat, we've got Austin, Jen, and Skitch in the live chat with us here. If you want to join the live chat, you can go to patreon.com/radiofreeurbanism, and for as little as $1 a month, you can support this podcast because the software and stuff we use costs money, so all of that money goes toward that. But yeah, I was gonna say that I was chatting with somebody who says, does anybody really take transit to hockey games in Calgary? Because we do have a lot of parking at the Saddle Dome. It's true. And I said, yeah, a ton of people take transit. You drive? And he says, well, yeah, we always drive to the hockey games we go to because the Red Line train is always packed. I'm like, wait. And this is somebody who is a regular transit user. But he drives to hockey games because the train is too busy, which just shows how great the train is at getting people in and out. But yeah, it is super, super busy on game days like that. So I'll be interested to hear your report on how these Taylor Swift concerts go with transit. And
maybe this is what I need to do this weekend, is actually go out and take transit and see what's going on at peak times. Bike around, walk around.
Do a comparison.
Yeah.
What is it like at regular times or regular weekends during those times versus what is it like with the concert? Are they going to have any additional transit service for the concert?
This is the guy to ask.
Upping
we
it.
got him right
they're
here.
Up. I can't remember specifically, but yes, they are increasing a lot of, especially the train service, because kind of like the Saddle Dome, we have a station right outside both of our stadiums. So the Expo line is going to be just obliterated. Apparently, a lot of people are staying in Burnaby, there were Airbnbs and stuff all throughout the region along the SkyTrain line that people will be taking, living there temporarily for the tour, and then I guess taking the SkyTrain in from Burnaby, from Surrey, wherever it is. It's gonna, yeah. I'm excited to see what footage Nick collects. Remind me again what day this is. I can't remember.
It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 6th, 7th, and 8th. 3 shows in a row. Yeah.
I will be in Seattle.
They're closing off a bunch of different streets in front of BC Place. They normally do this for big shows. That's not unusual to make them pedestrianized or closed off completely. Sometimes they even reserve one whole block almost specifically for BC Place goers. But it's going to be...
Are they doing any sort of activation on those streets?
How do you mean?
Are they going to have any... sideshow sort of thing, or vendors and stuff on
Sometimes
those
there's vendors, but not often. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's just usually closed to through traffic.
Well, I look forward to your report. I also want to note Austin mentions in here, he says, I'm very pleased with Calgary's council item 7.2.2 today, a mixed use church concept in Calgary. That's kind of interesting. Yeah. I like more mixed use stuff. This is good news. I haven't been able to watch today's council meeting yet. I'm going to catch up on it later, but I've been working / sleeping today. So yeah, that's great though. I've got an update because I just got back from a trip, and it was kind of awesome. Any guesses as to what I did while I was there?
You looked at trains.
I looked at trains.
Videos.
I took videos of trains. I rode trains. Yeah, I did do those things. I haven't moved the footage onto my computer yet, so I'm just gonna hold my phone up to the screen. So
this is the quality content you guys come here for.
This is what you subscribe for.
Oh yeah.
So this is train in Munich. Yeah, and I always love being able to see the trains, the way when you have a continuous gangway, just seeing the train swerve in front. So I now have footage like that from Munich, London, and Montreal. So I'm pretty satisfied. It was good. I saw some interesting stuff. I saw some grassy trams in that place that I went to in Munich. I saw trams in Vienna, like crazy. Have you guys been to Vienna?
Nope.
It's
Not left
it's
the
like
continent.
you've never left the okay, Arden,
Unfortunately,
we got to get
sorry.
you got to get you out
sorry,
there.
boy.
We can get into that later if we want.
Yeah, we will. Although I didn't leave the continent till actually last year, literally. So I was 27 when I first left the continent. But yeah, it was like it was amazing. The amount of trams in Vienna was absolutely bananas. So that was fun to see. I got lots of footage of that. Of course, like there are things that I enjoyed and that I kind of said like, oh, I like the way they do this or that. And then there are other things that I'm like, maybe we do that a little bit better. So yeah, any questions for me now that I'm like an Austrian Germany expert? Oh, Nick, you're muted, or at least your sound's not coming through. Nick's actually being silenced. Actually, we're kicking him off the show. This is the slow departure.
Not enough hair.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where Nick's audio has gone.
Well, I'll ask
he's
you a
gonna come
question
back.
then.
Yeah,
in the
ask me a
meantime.
question.
So a lot of the time when we try to do trams in North America, we end up with light rail or we end up with really bad streetcars. How do you think
Yeah.
they've made it work in Europe, seeing as you've experienced it?
Seeing as I'm an expert now,
Yeah.
honestly, the biggest thing, like, you got to have a right of way. You got to have its own right of way. Obviously, we talk a lot about like streetcars in Toronto, and that being a major issue with them. Is if you're just stuck in traffic, like a streetcar without its own right of way is literally just a bad bus because it can't go around, it can't move, it's stuck in one place. But if it has its own right of way, you can move faster, you can move more trains, meaning, you also move more people, you have better frequencies, things like that. You also have operating cost efficiencies because you're running on electricity rather than diesel or gas or natural gas. And so, yeah, there's, like, that's how you do trams right. I will say the Vienna trams, always super packed. There were literally tram traffic jams because the trams were so full, and they were kind of coming up against each other. And they also have to deal with, like, even though they have their own right of way, there were also parts where they didn't have like signal priority necessarily, or at least their signal priority didn't get them through immediately, right? Like they were still kind of on a timed schedule. And so, sometimes you'd end up on a tram sitting at a light for a minute before you get to go through. But it was pretty awesome.
Can I follow up that question then? With a slightly different question. Do you think that the trams that you took there, do you think it could be done with a bus, like a BRT?
Yeah, like BRT, if you do it well, is great. But again, there's those operational efficiencies of a tram, right? Like if this is just a route that we're going to have, and we're going to have this route forever, it's on one of our main corridors, then putting down the rails can be a huge benefit. I will also note that with a vehicle on tracks, you can make that right of way a little bit more narrow. Like you can squeeze it in a little bit. And the trams in Vienna are really tiny. Like they're skinny. They're really skinny trams. They're like wide enough to have kind of the aisle and then two seats. Like there's not,
So like the SkyTrain. Gotcha.
Maybe I haven't been on the SkyTrain for a long time. But yeah, like super narrow trams. I think like doing it with buses is potentially a good way to start. I also think if you can build the right of way that buses and trams can use it, I think that's also beneficial to get people moving. But but yeah, I enjoyed it. I took transit in Innsbruck, Salzburg, Vienna, and in Munich, and in Bratislava. Actually, we did take we were in Bratislava for like 2 hours. We basically took a train in from Vienna, hopped on a tram, rode around a little bit, looked around, and then pieced out. So yeah, it was cool. It was nice seeing the way that other places do it. I'll say Vienna's mobile app was really easy to use, like amazingly easy to use. Easy enough. I never even bothered to get a physical ticket. But I just got like a 72-hour pass, which was, I don't know, maybe 10 euros or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. And then everywhere else I went, I got a physical ticket. The machines in some of these places, they did offer a language setting. Like you could choose from like 6 different languages, particularly in Salzburg and in Munich and in Innsbruck. I used that feature to switch to English. There was one machine that I used in Innsbruck that I couldn't figure out how to change the language. I think there might have been a language option, but I couldn't figure it out. And I wanted to use one of their more regional rail services there. So I literally just clicked buttons. I'm pretty sure that I got it right in the end. But that's like, when you design a system well, even somebody who has a language barrier, like I don't know German. I know some of the numbers, right? But I just like clicked around and I think I figured it out okay. So if you do it well, like a language barrier isn't going to stop people from using quality transit, right? And that's the right way to design your city.
Absolutely. Yeah. Did you get on a bike at all?
I didn't.
Did you see
yeah,
any?
when I did. Yeah, I think all of these places had a bike share. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I saw bike share all over the place. I saw a lot of e-scooters as well. They had Lime there and a couple other options. And so that was cool to see. They didn't I didn't see that many people using them though. I didn't see a ton of people using the bike shares that they had. A lot of the locals, they just all had their own e-bikes, or a lot of e-bikes, a lot of just acoustic bikes. But one, oh yeah, the bike lanes. The bike lanes were kind of interesting. I did kind of pay some attention to that. They weren't amazing. Like having been to the Netherlands, where the Netherlands just like knocks it out of the park on the bike lane front, and then visiting and seeing cycling infrastructure in Austria. Vienna was pretty good, but the other places I visited was kind of like, oh, like it seems more like people are biking there not because there's amazing infrastructure, but because there is more density and more mixed use. So a lot of the trips are shorter anyways. There's also more of a culture of cycling, and because the streets are narrower, right? Like the roads are just safer to bike on in general. But I wasn't like amazed by the cycling infrastructure that they had the way that I was in the Netherlands. Like I fully believe any human being could pick up a bike in the Netherlands and be like, oh, this is how I do this here, right? I didn't get the same sense from the cycling infrastructure in Austria.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of my review of their cycling stuff. But they do have a lot.
Yeah, there's few places in Europe that come anywhere close to the Netherlands. Like a few cities do for sure, especially like in Denmark, of course. But like, come on, it's so far away, man. It's crazy.
Yeah,
like even some really great places, you're like, this is great, but like, no, it's not the Netherlands.
Well, and I also I was thinking about it too, just from like an accessibility standpoint. They have a lot of cobblestone streets around. And I told my aunt while we were there, I went with two of my aunts and a great aunt on this trip. And two of them, or like I was looking at the accessibility, looking at the way the sidewalks are built, and just the pedestrian infrastructure in general. I was like, I would not want to have to use a wheelchair or a walker in this place. Like if I had a physical mobility disability, I would much rather live in North America than in Europe, just because of the way they do their pedestrian infrastructure. It is very much for people with feet, or with like legs and able to like walk around comfortably. So I was kind of looking at that. If I did live in Europe, like I think the Netherlands would be fine. Like they have a lot more of like a specifically laid out sense about that sort of thing. But almost none of the trains that I rode had level boarding. That was like just like not a thing. Most of the places there was like a step up, and sometimes that's because they're using different rolling stock and they're like, this is the one platform that we have. Munich had one specific spot on like most of the platforms where it was like, if you're using a wheelchair, this is where you get on. Similar to how like the Montreal Metro also has like a specific spot at the end of the vehicle where it's like, this is like, we have a huge space for wheelchair users specifically over here. But yeah, there just wasn't much level boarding. And also just the way the roads and streets and crosswalks and things like that. Because also people don't stop for you when you're going to cross the street. You either have to force your way through or be very patient. So yeah, there's a lot of things that I liked and that I was like, this is great. I want to like take this home with me. And then there were a lot of things that I was like, oh, this is something we actually do really well and that I can take pride in, and appreciate about my own city. And frankly, most cities in North America, I think we do, at least, from what I've seen from my perspective, as somebody kind of looking at it from more of an outside perspective, I think we do okay, at least.
Yeah,
right on.
That's my
That's awesome to
diarrhea
hear.
dump.
Yeah, it's cool, and I'm looking forward to any content that may or may not come out of this. I hope you. I still have to make a video about my Montreal trip too, and I do actually have some thoughts about what to say about that. It's kind of like I want to have something specific to say about those things. I don't want to just be like, oh man, here's some footage from my trip. Yeah, totally.
Enjoy.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You need a space for that and a real tight audience just for that type of content. But yeah, either way.
Yeah, so we'll see what I say about it. But I think I've killed enough time. We don't have many stories today, so I think I've killed enough time with this trip chat. Arden, update us. Tell us what's going on.
Well, I'll start off with the channel because it's been nearly 7 months since I was last on the show. That's crazy in its own sense. In that time, I have put out a whopping 2 videos, and the channel is growing. I'm really thrilled at that fact. I think I've doubled in subscribers since I last came on here as well. So I'm doing great in that sense. I also started a Patreon page myself, and I probably got to do a bit more with it, but we're learning. It's good. That's also a lot of fun to see. I did a video on the George Massey Tunnel replacement. This project here, I think that it's mirrored right now. Trust me on that.
It looks fine from here.
Oh, okay, cool. And then I did a video on regional rail in British Columbia, kind of talking about our West Coast Express system. If you haven't seen those, please go check those out. Shameless plug on the greater discussions. Personally, a lot has happened since I came on. I had a nice summer. I worked at a golf course full time as a grounds crew, which didn't see that coming. And that was just a neat. You hear a lot of flack for golf courses and their land use, especially in the planning sphere. So it was neat to see it from the other side. That was kind of cool in its own sense. Otherwise, I'm officially a second-year university student. We just entered final season, so this happened just the right time. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. If you have questions specifically for me, I don't know if we got those, but yeah, otherwise I'm doing pretty good.
I'm just wondering how you can keep up making any videos and then be in school at the same time.
Well, yeah, I've made a couple of them. Usually I try to take advantage of those breaks. Like my video that went up in October on Regional Rail, the bulk of the content was done, filmed, recorded, and mostly edited in the summer. And would have gone up that first week of September, but I got sick, and that delayed it by a full month. And I managed to just get it up in October. So there is that kind of aspect. I've barely touched my next project since, although I've been going around meeting with people, learning about the subject of my next video to make sure. We're going back to housing for this one. I've talked about transportation for 3 videos in a row. We're going back to housing, and that's opens up a whole can of worms, because my other housing video is my most viewed video. I think it has 69,000 views, and a lot of racists in the comment section, because that's YouTube. So yeah, at a certain point it hits that demographic and you're like, oh, yep, okay, yep. And
that's how you know you made it big.
Sure.
Yeah,
I guess so.
People are saying stuff. I want to ask, where do we find your Patreon page? Is it Arden English or the Greater Discussions?
It is the Greater Discussions. So patreon.com/the Greater Discussions on your web browser of choice. I am told not to recommend you do it through iPhones because they take more money then. Because they've changed how, I guess, Apple is stingy with the way that apps use their services. So they want more money from Patreon, which means creators get less.
I wouldn't say stingy, greedy.
Yeah, that's the word. Greedy. That's the word. Yeah. So yeah, if you're looking to support creators, even on YouTube with the join membership systems as well, I hear, do it through a web browser, because the channels that you're supporting get a little bit more from that. So yeah, thank you for the plug.
Well, and it's kind of interesting on that note. Audible, you cannot buy things through the app. If you want to pay for the book, because on Audible you can use your credit, or you can buy something, but the app only lets you buy things with credits. It doesn't let you buy things with money, because the mobile phone.
Okay. I don't have an iPhone, so I don't have that experience.
Yeah, well,
I don't have Audible, so I don't have that experience.
Yeah, it is. That it's like an issue that a lot of apps and stuff deal with, because when there's kind of a monopoly, when there's a little bit more control, people are gonna take it. But yeah, Arden's got great content. I think the first thing I watched of yours was you talking about the SFU gondola, which is a big must. I've chatted with a few people from Vancouver since, and they're all really, really big fans of you and of that video.
Thank you.
And so yeah, here's the thing. So there's a variety of transit things we can build, right? And we talk about trains and trams and buses a lot. We talk about bikes a lot as well, but there are so many other things. And a gondola is one of those things, but it's kind of like a unique situation, right? Like, you don't build it in every city. I can't really imagine Phoenix, Arizona having much need for a gondola. At least, from what I know, there might be a specific niche case. But maybe because we have time today that we're trying to kill, tell us, Arden, maybe give us the Coles Notes version of the idea for this gondola, and then we can point people to that video.
Yeah, so for context, SFU's main campus is located on a small mountain in the city of Burnaby, which is directly adjacent to the city of Vancouver. City of Burnaby has also been building a lot of housing, so also noteworthy, and also on the mountain. Thank you for loading up some footage from that. Yeah, the gondola is this idea to connect the closest SkyTrain station to the main SFU transit, or the bus loop, bus exchange. That is the word. And while gondolas aren't as fast as buses, when you can take, your as the crow flies, straight line route, you save a lot of time. When the buses are moving freely, late at night, really early in the morning, maybe the middle of the day, the trip will take 11 to 15 minutes up and down. The gondola will be able to do it in 6 to 7, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're tacking that on to students who might be coming, in my case, from White Rock, which is a 2-hour transit trip, who knows, maybe those 5 minutes can feel like an eternity when it's just that last leg, right? So it is a project that hopefully will be cheap. We don't know right now what the final cost estimate is going to be, and chances are it's going to be a lot higher than they last said, which sucks, but it can be done quickly. It was just included in the latest investment plan, which came out, I think, last week. So they're still thinking about it. We're waiting on the business case to know the exact finer details. I wish that was released by now, because there's a lot I could talk about if that was out. But unfortunately, not yet. But it's a really good project that I really hope happens soon. The estimated completion time is 2028 to 2029, somewhere within that range, which, while I won't be at SFU anymore, hopefully by then, there are going to still be thousands of students every day who will be able to use this service. So, and it moves way more people than these buses. So, no, it's a very exciting project.
Yeah, and it's something that, it's always good to see these things being worked on, because it is about the future generations who are going to benefit from it. I think this goes for a lot of things that we're working on, but it's really cool to see that this could be something that can improve someone's experience who especially, needs their time. Mm-hmm. Someone who's busy working on stuff to better themselves and hopefully better society. Like we think at least you're doing, Arden, because, you're going to be one of these people who's actually in the mix. Like, Yute Lee. Maybe you're going to be the next Yute Lee. That's all I'm saying.
Ooh, that would be fun.
Yeah, I think it's great having having different people talk about these different perspectives and experiences on transit, and this one in particular, because it is a very niche case, right? Like, I'd never think to make a video talking about a gondola to SFU. That it's not part of my transit experience, but you have that very particular experience with this place and with the transit there. And you can see and visualize and explain and share that vision with people for that impact. I also want to note, Skitch says that there is, in fact, a niche in Phoenix, apparently. Skitch says, where the light rail will end in south is on Baseline. Having a gondola station there to take you to top of South Mountain, and have a station there, and then goes to Awatuke district. There's no houses really between it, which is usually the concerns, and its low impact on to the environment. And Skitch says this is Jamie's dream. Jamie, who was previously a co-host on the show. Yeah, that sounds interesting. I know nothing about the location. Maybe somebody can make a video talking about that. Skitch, maybe that's you. Maybe you should make a video talking about this, or make Jamie make the video talking about this gondola.
I'll point out.
Yeah, go ahead, Arden.
I'll quickly point out that not being over houses and not being a big impact, or not being an impact to the environment, is bypassing the two biggest criticisms of the gondola. It doesn't have much of an environmental impact, but it does pass over a neighborhood that is on the sside of the mountain that are kind of pissed off about it. So, avoiding that would be a big plus for a project like that.
Yeah, because you don't. you don't really want to pass over homes. I don't think, at least, like, I don't know. I feel weird about that, but yeah, I think there's a conversation to be had there. Austin says that we should have a funicular in Calgary, specifically at SAIT. I guess I don't know. I don't know if I would champion that project. It could be interesting. I love the idea of having niche transit. There is one spot in Calgary that I've heard people talk about for doing a gondola. I forget where it was, but maybe Austin can fill us in. But yeah,
it's funny you mentioned that. Oh,
yeah.
One quick thing before we move on. It's funny you mentioned that because there is one document in White Rock's plan, because White Rock is a very hilly city, coastal city, removed from just on the edges of Metro Vancouver, to build a funicular between Uptown and the waterfront. It is mentioned once in this document as a long-term plan, and I'm like, hey, you want to build that? That's really cool. That would be a really cool thing for us to have. Like you're saying, niche transit choices. Personally, I think it would be cooler to have, like, was it Singapore or Hong Kong that does it with the escalators that go, the escalator network to go up a hill? I think that would be cool as well. But I read about that recently, and it's, yeah, sure. I'd like to see something almost sort of touristy, get some more people coming to White Rock. That'd be neat.
Yeah, it is interesting. I did ride a cable car when I was in what city was that in? Was that Innsbruck? And you go like up, and you're in 4 different cars on this one vehicle, and so you go into your car, and it's a small box. It's not like a big thing, and then as you go up the mountain, they rotate so that they're always level. But then it allows the stations to be at different grades. So one of the stations is flat. The first station where you get on at the bottom is flat, and you just walk on. Everybody's in a line. But then as you go up, because the grade changes, some people up in this car go up here like this. Some people are here like this. But it's all one vehicle.
Neat.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I enjoyed looking at that. It was kind of, one of those unique niche transit things for bringing people up this thing. Austin says he says he thinks the more realistic gondola in Calgary would be from Foothills Hospital to Westbrook Station, which, if you look on a map, that's a huge distance to cover. But I think we're ready for our next.
Ready for a story, finally?
Yeah, we're ready for our first news story of the day. We've spun our wheels long enough. Take us away, Nick.
This is something we've talked about before. It's about headlines and how they can be very misleading and immediately give the wrong picture, because we know nobody just reads the headlines and that's the story they take away, right? That never happens, right? We're clear on that? Of course, no. This is coming from BBC in the UK, where something happened. They've since changed the headline, but this is the original headline. I'm going to read it here. Police hunt mum's killer after e-bike hit and run. Now, just hearing that, what might you think happened? What might people think happened? When I first saw this pop up, I was kind of like, because obviously it popped up in the Fuck Cars subreddit, and I was like, okay, guys, relax. But then I actually went and looked in the comments that weren't on Fuck Cars, and everybody assumed that an e-bike rider hit and killed a woman. But when you look at the article, the second line reads, Alana Armstrong, 25 years old, was a passenger on one of 2 e-bikes that were pursued by a 4x4 in Pleasley, I think, Derbyshire, on Tuesday evening, and she was killed. They were deliberately hit by somebody riding a 4x4, which I don't know if that means a car or if that means like a utility vehicle, like whatever you call those things, type of 4x4. I'm not sure. But either way, it's just it's pretty crazy that a headline like that even gets past somebody. Like you're the editor and that's the one you decide. It seems really stupid. Whether that's to be sensational and get clicks and get people interested, whether you have an agenda and you actually just hate e-bikes. I don't know, but it's wild. The new headline here on BBC is, Hit and run murder probe after mom rammed off e-bike, which is definitely much more appropriate considering what happened. But yeah, what do you guys think about this?
Go ahead, Arden.
Yeah, no, that's it's terrible. Both the headline and the event. It reminds me back at the end of the summer when tragically Johnny Gaudreau and his brother were killed by a drunk driver. How that some headlines were misleading in that sense as well, almost blaming them for being on bikes, and how the result of that with the community was people all coming together and saying, "Hey, this is a bullshit headline," right? Like, and eventually getting those headlines changed as well. So in that sense, it's kind of nice to see that people are becoming more aware of this issue of headlines, and especially the victim blaming side of it, how there is more attention around it and willingness to, hey, critique the outlets a little bit more. And, you have a responsibility, as this is the first impression of any article, for it to be truthful and not misleading. So no, it's not good news, but it's
It just seems like there's room to be sensational and get clicks, but actually be factual, right?
Yeah.
That's possible. That's doable, right? We do that with YouTube videos, right?
Exactly.
That's
yes,
what our goal is when we make a title and a thumbnail, is try to get clicks, but be somewhat factual at least, even though it might be somewhat sensational. But to be completely like misleading and incorrect, like this is literal clickbait, like this is totally bullshit. And to me, it seems like there's some kind of underlying agenda there. It's fucked up.
I don't think we should ascribe to malice with what can just be ascribed to,
Come on.
ignorance or stupidity. Like somebody just wrote this and wasn't thinking about how that headline. That's my take. That's what I think.
Under the knife there, or crunch time. They were working overtime. They had 5 coffees. They were just strung out, and
this is like a quick article about a horrible situation that they're trying to get out online. And it's awful. Like this is horrible, and somebody, they probably just e-bike hit and run, mom, police, right? Like that's what they're filling in here. And not thinking about the headline. Obviously they made this correction, but it's embarrassing and it's frustrating when there's already like this kind of environment where people think that e-bikes are like these horrible, dangerous machines. And I say people, I say people as in 5 or 10 people shouting in comment sections online. I think most people quite enjoy e-bikes when they give them a go. And so it's frustrating. I don't think probably that there was anything meant by this, but feeding into those ideas are unhelpful.
You know what? I'm really sad that you're not going to, go into the whole ideas that I have about, building conspiracy theories about this anti-e-bike lobby. No, that's a very good response. And that's probably what happened, right? It probably is, but the sad part is it happens more often than you'd like it to, at least. Like we talked about a few weeks ago, and Arden pointed out about the Gaudreau brothers who were killed. It happens too often. And when it's surrounded by all this other rhetoric and comments that we've talked about, negative things about e-bikes, which there's valid complaints, to be had about people riding on sidewalks and stuff, people speeding on e-bikes that are way more powered than they should be. And those are being overblown. It's just adding to the fire, and it sucks. That's all. I don't know.
Yeah. Sucks that it gets through.
Yeah.
And so hopefully hopefully people kind of have their wits about them and hopefully read the article, because it's horrible, and that's sad. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that because it's such a.
That's that.
I mean, it's-
It is. It
Might
is.
be-
It sucks.
might
This
be time
woman
to
was
move on
killed.
then.
His
Yeah.
mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other person who was riding, a 20-something-year-old, he had his leg amputated. It's horrible
Oh,
that
wow.
this would happen in the first place. Somebody get hunted down, and then them run off afterwards. Like that's.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's in the UK. It's much like Canada, where things like this happen, and it's like, oh, I guess you're going to jail for 2 months, and then yeah, that's it. Well, who knows? Anyways, I'm just being pessimistic about this, but we should move on. And on that
Yeah,
note,
yes,
Arden,
let's.
you've got something in here.
Yeah, this is delayed by about a week, but that's okay. As was I. No, I'm kidding. So, I guess two Saturdays ago then, there was a protest held at Vancouver City Hall. Now, this happens every now and then. We've had a couple of them this year, as far as I can recall. But this time, ew, it's against what we urbanists like, so therefore it's bad. But no, in all seriousness, there's this plan that Vancouver has called the Broadway Plan. This idea that Broadway, which is getting a subway put under it, the idea to upzone pretty much everything around it, which is a handful of neighborhoods, and people are pissed off. Just it's a whole lot of what you come to expect: people yelling at public hearings, people getting kicked out of public hearings, and now one of the, I believe it's a City Hall Watch, which is it's a blog or a news posting group who are on the anti-housing side of this sort of issue, organized a protest at City Hall, and I was there, not to participate, but to get some footage in case I wanted to use it in the future. And I'll show you if I can share my screen properly here. There we go. Here we go. So here's one. I don't know if there's audio. You don't need audio, but here's a better look at the crowd here. There is a lot more people here than I had anticipated. And it was kind of an interesting experience personally, but also a very interesting, we don't know the outcome yet. This is all in preparation for next week's council meeting, where they are looking to amend or slightly alter the Broadway plan. Probably, I think it's to make heights higher and denser and more housing, and people are upset. They had a handful of speakers speaking at this protest as well. It was a very emotional, I guess, event for some of the folks there, just to state their voices. But it was also, it was I don't know how else to describe it other than to be there in that environment and actually be the that the minority of, oh, I actually like this, and all the people around me hate this. I'm going to stay quiet and see what happens, kind of thing. So, I don't know. I'd like to get your guys' thoughts just to start off on what do you think about? Oh, I can stop sharing my screen as well. I didn't realize that was still up there. What are your thoughts on this protest, Nick? If you're familiar with the Broadway plan.
Well, yeah, I'm familiar with the Broadway plan. It's something
Yeah.
we've talked about, especially what happened with the housing in general in BC and upzoning things near rapid transit stations, like along Broadway, where all these new stations are going to be for the SkyTrain, which is, I think, fantastic. But it's the same, we don't like to use the word, but like NIMBY type of stuff that we see. It's like, oh, our quiet little neighborhood's going to be ruined. It's forever going to be ruined. We've been here for decades. Like, we can't do this. It's going to be unlivable is one of the words that is actually used in here. And it's just like, I understand where people are coming from. People don't want change. People don't want their communities ruined. People all want the same things. And that's something that we have to keep reminding ourselves of when we're talking to people, because this is that's what we want. We all want to live in a safe, quiet place where we can be comfortable and enjoy ourselves with our neighbors. But I think the worries are overblown in general. Some of them more than others. Would it suck to have a giant tower pop up right beside your single family home that's going to cast a shadow on you for half the day? Yeah, that would suck. I wouldn't want that. But, there's this balance we have to have between being a community and then just being a walled garden for the wealthy, because that's what it's become. That's where we are.
Yeah,
are we willing to sacrifice for change?
Mm-hmm. And I know some of the folks speaking at this event were folks who do live in the neighborhood, but there's a lot of old low-rise apartment buildings that are also getting torn down and replaced, and that is an understandable point of contention. Hey, we have somewhat affordable housing here, we're going to tear it down and make it more expensive. While that's not exactly what happens, it's understandable how people get to that conclusion. It is worth mentioning regarding this update to the Broadway plan, there were rumors or something was mentioned recently that the city is maybe getting rid of or worsening the renter protection measures for this Broadway plan, which would be kind of disastrous. And I don't think even the YIMBY groups, folks like us who support housing, should really not support decreased renter protections, even if the outcome is maybe faster housing. We don't want a second Metrotown. For context, when Metrotown, which is a big neighborhood next to a SkyTrain station, when that was upzoned and redeveloped, a lot of displacement in old low-rise buildings just were basically just thrown to the side and couldn't move back. So we don't want a repeat of Metrotown. And I would have to imagine that Vancouver is conscious of this fact. I don't think, even if it is brought up, that it'll pass that specific amendment. But if those renter protection measures, though not perfect, do stay a part of it, this is still a really good plan that should go through. I'll pass it over to Alex then.
Yeah, I know nothing about this project, so I'm definitely the wrong person to talk about. But as we talk about upzoning and stuff, I think this highlights why it's important to allow gradual growth and change in a neighborhood, because then these changes aren't sudden, right? Like I live in a single detached home, and I would very much not enjoy having like a high rise beside my house. I wouldn't be interested in that, right? Whereas like townhomes beside my house, well, that's fine. That's like a similar built form, right? Or if there was like some low-rise apartments at the end of my block, right? Like these gradual changes. And this is why it's important that we don't have such restrictive and constraining requirements on our zoning, because then by the time we start to experience change in our neighborhoods, which are changing all the time and should be allowed to change all the time, as new people move in and old people move out and things change and the needs of the community change, right? Like when a community goes from being full of young families to having a lot of empty nesters or university students, or these groups need different things. And so I think being adaptable to those changes is really important. And also remembering that, like, it's not going to happen overnight, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's really important to consider as well. Yeah, those are kind of my basic thoughts, more broadly on the subject of upzoning.
Yeah,
right? Like we are so strict and so intense on what we permit in our neighborhoods, that it's suffocating, right? Like you can't build just like a cafe at the end of my block, even though it'd be a delightful way to meet my neighbors, right? It'd be a delightful way to be able to get out and spend time in the community, but that's illegal, right?
Yeah.
And like, so that's my thought on it. Again, on the specifics of this Broadway plan, I know nothing about it. So I can't really speak to that, but yeah.
Well, it's neat that both of you bring up this idea. If you live in a single family home per se, you're not exactly going to be welcoming a 20-story building right next door to you. But in most times, those aren't the neighborhoods you want to be building high rises in anyways, right? In the case of the Broadway plan, this is on the other side of downtown. So we've got this little inlet called False Creek. It is not a real creek. It is a false one. And that's where the Broadway plan is actually kicking in. It's literally a bridge away from the downtown core. And while it's not ideal that that's where a lot of these low-rise buildings are. That's where these renter protections should have their biggest impact. Here. Thank you, Nick, for bringing up the visual. So you see Fairview maybe on the map there. This is that area, and Kitsilano, the western side of it, is where most of the opposition is coming from, especially as that's just where a lot of those low-rise apartments can also be found, also around City Hall. But it shouldn't detract from the fact that high density around a 3-minute frequency SkyTrain line is where it should be, right? The rest of the city can do perfectly fine with increased, more gentle densities, but along our rapid transit corridors, it's just the right place to build this housing, and people want to live here. We shouldn't restrict them from living here. So I think that's the last of the comments that I'll throw on there. But yeah.
No, that's great points, absolutely. And you know what? There are fair arguments, especially what you're talking about with these low-rise apartments. Kitsilano is probably one of the most desirable neighborhoods to live in the city. It's close to the beach. And but there is a lot of single-family homes in these areas. But I don't I'm no expert on housing, not even close. It's something I know about peripherally. I've read a book about it recently. This is what happens when it's gotten this bad. There's so much pressure that's what happens. You can't build anything else but a giant fucking 20+ story tower in the middle.
We
of the
are
neighborhood.
overcompensating in a bit, but for decades worth of doing next to nothing, right?
Yeah.
It's not ideal, but it's what has to be done to an extent.
But like Alex said, it's the gentle density and moving up, letting your neighborhood move organically is what makes a neighborhood. That's how it became what it is in the first place, not from saying we can't build stuff.
And I'll say too, we're talking about being behind, right? When we talk about housing and our housing crisis that we have, this isn't a new thing. This is a decades long issue that so many people have already been experiencing for a long time. And the reason that it's coming to the fore now is because people who look like me, who are, middle class-ish, straight white guys who have professional careers, now we're experiencing the problems. And so now, people who have a voice, people who, are comfortable speaking at council and who know how to go and do that, because we are being affected by it. Now it's suddenly an issue that's being talked about, even though this has been an issue for decades. This has been a failure on all 3 levels of government in Canada for decades. And so when we talk about needing to build housing, as much as I'm, sad that my neighbors cut down their tree, for their own reasons, they chopped down their tree. As much as I'm sad about that, because it was a nice tree and it was a nice part of my walk and looked nice on the block, I also acknowledge most people don't have the luxury of caring about that stuff. Most people don't have the luxury of caring about the color or size or shape of their neighbor's home. Most people don't have the luxury of choosing their neighborhood. Most people live where they were able to find a place to live. They didn't go house hunting. They didn't shop around. They didn't have choices. They didn't have options. They weren't looking in a specific neighborhood. They said, this is the city where I have a job, and golly gee, I hope I find a house. I hope I find a roof over my head. And so when we talk about building housing, I think it's really important to maintain that perspective that the people we're building housing for are not the people who are just I can live wherever I want. I can build whatever I want. I can pay whatever I want. I'm not going to be priced out of the market. We're building housing for human beings who, if we don't build this housing for, they will die on the street. Right? Every day people die on the streets in Canada, especially as we're getting into winter. and they're using our transit stations as safe places. And we talk about transit safety. We talk about having nice transit. We talk about having nice things in general. But then they get kicked out of the transit stations because the rest of us feel uncomfortable. And you know what's really uncomfortable? Dying, I imagine, right? Like
Yeah.
being on the street, living out in the cold when it's minus 40 and you're freezing. That sounds pretty horrible, right? And so when we talk about housing, it's important to remember that we are talking from a position of privilege. I have a roof over my head right now. I have electricity running right now. I'm able to just chat with people, on the other, side of the country here, right? Like, we're talking about this from a place where, we get to be theoretical about it, but this is the real lived experience of thousands and thousands of Canadians, and thousands and thousands of people across the world. And so it's really important for us to, maintain that perspective when we talk about building housing. Obviously, we all want nice, built forms, and we want things to look good, and we want things to feel good. And we want things to be beautiful and to last, and to have a positive impact on the communities where we're building them. But the most important impact of building housing is that we're building housing, right? The most important of building housing is housing, not what it looks like, not the shape, not the colors, not the cladding. We can talk about all that stuff, and I think it's important to consider all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, people need roofs over their heads, and I think that needs to be the primary point of discussion when we're talking about this.
Very well put.
Are we building housing where people need it, and where people will benefit from it? I think that's what it all comes down to.
That was very insightful. Very well put. Thank you,
Thanks.
Alex.
Thank you. Do we have anything else we want to say on this one?
I think it's time that we move on.
All right. Well, let's get into some listener mail here. This one comes from Galaxy Hunter 309, and they say, "I am an old Canuck." I just have to wait. Nick's little icon is in the way there. Thank you. I am an old Canuck who rides in the Netherlands pretty much every year. Totally love it there. Fietsknoop is a great app which maps all the bicycle infrastructure in the Netherlands and some of Belgium and Germany. I use that app to plan my trips out of some of my favorite places: Edam, Harlingen, Leiden, Gore, etc. I just became a board member for Bike Medicine Hat. Go Medicine Hat. Where I hope to encourage more riders to enjoy what infrastructure we have and to lobby more. I think that's fantastic. I'm really excited to hear that there's some great stuff happening in Medicine Hat. For context, Medicine Hat is a small Alberta city, southern Alberta, about hour and a half-ish away from Calgary. What is this you're showing us?
This is
here,
the Fietsnoop app, which they talked about, which I'm like, I need to check into this because it's Google Maps isn't the best way to get around the Netherlands.
Wow.
So it's good to hear about this because I'm looking forward to figuring this out because I don't know if anybody knows this, but they have this system where they have these numbers. So if you're like, I need to get from here to here, it's like, okay, follow this number, and then that'll just get you to where you need to go across the country. It's pretty neat.
Wow.
Yeah, and those
Very
numbers, those numbers are like intersections. They're not routes, which I think is pretty cool.
They're like nodes.
Yeah, that's super cool. Actually, I like that. Having like these specific apps and knowing what apps to use to get around. Like I mentioned the Vienna Transit app earlier in the show. That was a huge help. And then when I come back to North America, having the transit app, the one based out of Montreal, being able to use that because that doesn't work in Europe. So that was nice to it's nice to know how to get around a place.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on this, Arden?
Well, I mean, I'm more so curious. Nick, did you know of this app when you went to the Netherlands?
No, I didn't. Like I used Google Maps. I talked about it in one of my videos briefly because it would try to put me on places that were not good to bike when there was like an option really close by that was much better.
Right.
I followed the people.
Yeah.
That was what I did. That
No,
usually
smart.
worked out.
I mean, as we've aforementioned, as somebody who's never left the continent and who wishes to sometime soon, I'll have to keep this in mind because I would absolutely love to visit the Netherlands sometime within the near future. And yeah, just to get an idea of the cycling experience where it's good would be wonderful. So I'm gonna have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, just a good insight.
Yeah, that'd be super rad, and that's something I'll keep in mind as well, because I'm sure I'll get back to the Netherlands eventually. Although I just put Singapore pretty high on my list. I met a couple Singaporeans on my Europe trip, and they convinced me that I should come and visit. I was like, yeah, I hear things are amazing, things are very cool there, and they're like, yeah, like for the most part, they also mentioned that they have their own issues, of course, but it would be. It'd be cool to see it myself. Of course, we have some mail from Jen. Nick, if you want to grab that one.
Oh, I can do that. Sure. This is from, Jen Hall. This is in light of the Eras tour ending here in Vancouver, and she shared something. The Urbanist Eras, starting from 1 through 12. And this is sharing on the screen, but for those of you who are listening, I'm going to read them out. So number 1, Garden City Era. Green belts, cottages, balance between city and countryside. Number 2, modernist city era, concrete towers, clean lines, function over charm. Number 3, suburban sprawl era, cul-de-sacs, strip malls, car culture rules. Number 4, Jane Jacobs era, vibrant streets, quote, eyes on the street, save neighborhoods. 5, brutalist era, bold concrete structures, fortress vibes, love it or hate it. Number 6, urban renewal era. Highways, mega projects, neighborhoods replaced. Number 7, new urbanist era. Walkable communities, plazas, nostalgic city design. Number 8, tech bro urbanism era. Smart cities, scooters, disruption culture. Number 9, bike boom era. Protected lanes, Copenhagen, MNV, pedal power. Number 10, Yimby era. Upzoning, mid-rise apartments, yes, in my backyard. Did I miss one? Yeah, 11, 15-minute city era, everything within a walk or bike ride, Parisian vibes. And number 12, eco city era, green roofs, urban forests, sustainability for the win. I like it. That's great. Which era are we in? We haven't made it here yet, that's for sure. Maybe we're no, I don't know where we are here in North America, but most places don't fit the bill for those later ones. Maybe in San Francisco, you got definitely a tech bro urbanism happening over there in a lot of cities for sure.
What's our personal era in though? Like what are we personally vibing most with?
That's a good question.
I'm gonna say I'm in my Jane Jacobs era. I think I relate most to the vibrant streets, eyes on the street, like neighborhoods kind of focus. I think that's where I'm at. With a little bit of Yimby thrown in, I think it's important to build more.
I think I'm definitely 15-minute city era for sure. Like that's just so much of what I think about. Like I love bikes, I love micromobility because that's a tool that it's a means to an end for me. And I find it could be that for so many people. But ideally, I could just walk everywhere. Like I'm already in that place for the most part. It's fantastic, as some people have seen here in the live chat because I dox myself.
Yeah,
but like that's the win, man. Like if you can have kids and you can walk them to school or whatever. That's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah, I kind of like that's kind of my thing with like the Jane Jacobs era is like you have the things that you need in your neighborhood. There's the local cafe, there's the bakery, there's the school, there's the church tower in the middle that kind of helps with wayfinding. That's always my favorite thing whenever I go to Europe is that they have all these church towers. And so then you can see like kind of where you're at. You can orient yourself based on those. That's something that I enjoy about European architecture. is that like kind of community feel, especially when you go to like the smaller cities and towns. There's always like, oh, there's the church tower. That's the middle of the city, and I can kind of get around based on that. What about you, Arden? What's your era?
Right now, it's undeniable that I'm in the suburban sprawl era. That's White Rock and Surrey for the most part. But I can't wait to be in that YIMBY era. Although I must admit, I do like high rises more than mid rises. I'm definitely a part of a minority in that. But I do like being up high, and I'd love to live in a high rise.
Really?
My ideal neighborhood is this neighborhood called Brentwood. It's in Burnaby, and it's super tall. But it's also along the SkyTrain line, and like this idea to be able to bike and walk everywhere is wonderful, but also have really good train connections. I'd rather take a train over even biking most times. But I do love biking as well. So that's probably where I'd like to wind up in that 15-minute city era or YIMBY era, one of the two.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm so fascinated. So wait, you both like high-rise apartments over like 5/1s?
I do.
I've lived in both,
yeah.
and I prefer living in a high-rise, mostly because of the view.
I haven't lived in either. But I mean, as somebody who loves views and who, I mean, I don't need that much space right now, but I've seen how you can integrate 2 or 3 bedrooms into high rises, and I'm like, yeah, I love that. That sounds like a lot of fun. We've got a development just around the corner in South Surrey here for a high rise that it's row houses at the bottom, 4 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 2-bedroom studio penthouse as it goes up. I'm like, that's such a cool way to build a high rise. I wish that was like how all of them were built, where you know, as you progress through your life, you can just move down the floors pretty much, right? No, I do like those heights.
It is crazy though, like the prices that they're going for. Like I know in Metrotown and Brentwood, like you said, there was. I think I talked about this maybe on the show before. I'm gonna stop saying that. I'm just gonna talk. But but like there was this guy posted on the Vancouver subreddit, I think, and he lives somewhere in Burnaby, and he was looking at the towers that he's newly built. They'd been finished over a year ago, and he's like, I don't think anybody's living in these. So he like went and investigated, and he asked them, I'd like to look at one of the places you have for sale, and like which floor. And these things still had signs outside that said "Move in ready, summer 2023." And this is just a few months ago that he posted this. And it's because they're not selling them. They're like just keeping the prices high. The amount of money that they have to spend to keep these empty is lower than the gains they have from holding it. So the prices just stay high. Nobody's buying them. You're like almost $2 million for a 3-bedroom unit. They look fantastic.
Yeah.
I'd said to my wife, I'm like, I would love to live here. I could live here for decades, but like not for that price. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
But I don't even know where I was going.
Yeah,
with
it sucks.
Oh, I just had to mention though, and this is totally a selfish thing, but like living in a concrete building is amazing. I almost never hear my neighbors, and hopefully they never hear me.
Well, even wood built buildings, like I've lived in a 50-year-old townhome before, and the neighbors had 2 kids. I never heard them. Right, like it. You know, if
it's built right, I suppose. Yeah.
Modern soundproofing is pretty good, and you know, you also get inconsiderate neighbors who are thumping around like elephants.
Yeah.
And that's when you go and knock on a door, and you have a neighborly conversation about an issue you have. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of baffled that you guys like high rises that much. Like, I like being up high. I like, looking out with a huge view. But I don't know. I'm like a 5/1 kind of guy. Like
I got
all
a taste
day,
of
every
it.
day.
I got a taste of it a few years ago because a friend's parent lived in downtown Vancouver, actually, and I got to experience New Year's Eve about, I want to say 15 stories up, like right next to Nic, right next to Harbor Center. So very close to the waterfront station, the whole, everybody's gathering because it's New Year's. And I'm like, this is so cool. I could totally live like this. But yeah, no, you're right. The prices are absurd. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. I've learned something interesting about you guys. Yeah, this was a beautiful conversation. Do we have any final thoughts?
I have one bonus thing to share, and this
Yeah.
is something somebody brought up on my YouTube channel. They watched one of my older videos when I was in New York City, and they said, "That's Jill Biden." I had a still of somebody opening their door as I was riding by, and I'm going to share it here. And I'm going to get your guys' opinion. Do you think this is Jill Biden? Because I looked at pictures of her, I'm like, it could be. It could be. I don't think it is, but it could be.
I don't. Somebody
don't
just
know.
commented on your video, and they're like, "That's Jill Biden."
They're like, they said, "Girl, that's Jill Biden."
Jill Biden. I don't think that's Jill.
I don't
Biden.
think it's her either. And it's a Toyota. I'm like, I don't think Jill Biden's riding around in a Toyota.
Are you kidding? Everybody rides around in Toyotas. It's
Sure, but like, that's not what like the president gets driven around. It isn't like a Mercedes, not a Mercedes, but like a Cadillac or something.
Something like that.
It's the president's
What?
wife, for God's sakes.
What year
Yeah.
was this?
This was in 2023. Just last,
Okay, so-
June 2023.
Yeah, there's no way Jill Biden would be getting out on a random street
Yeah.
in 2023 with like no security around.
Right?
That is hilarious though.
It does look like her. It does.
That's like that is very very amusing to me and hilarious that somebody just like pauses the video and is like, "That's Jill
Well,
Biden."
I had a still in the video, so like,
Oh, it was a still in the
there
video.
was a still of 3 different people opening the door as passing by on a
Yeah.
bicycle.
That's funny.
But yeah, anyway.
Could you imagine if it was?
I know. I was like, it really, it's almost her. It's a doppelganger for sure.
And
Yeah.
she's like out there with no security because something sketchy was going on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start a whole like conspiracy theory in my head about this now.
Yeah, we need more of those.
Yeah, just remember, like, if you make conspiracy theories, keep it to yourself and make it for fun. Don't use it to spread disinformation and ruin the planet. Yeah. This has been fun. Thanks for sharing that tidbit. Any final thoughts from you, Arden?
Well, I'll have another video coming up. Hopefully in, I don't know, a month or so. I hope I don't get any flack for this one. I've gotten flack in the past for my videos, which is always fun to be on the receiving end of, I must say. But I hear Reddit goes a little bit wonky for some of my stuff, according to what Nick was telling me earlier. But I'm looking forward to the future. And hey, if you need me back, I'm always happy to come back.
You will certainly be back. Why don't you tell people where to find your stuff, where to find your Patreon, your YouTube channel, all of that stuff, and then pass it off to Nick.
Right on, yeah. So you can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon at The Greater Discussions. Twitter is The Arden English, and I'm now on Blue Sky at just Arden English. So feel free to reach out, find me there, and I hope to see you.
Yeah, you can find me, you know where to find me, on YouTube, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Nick the Door. How about you, Alex?
You can find me on YouTube and Instagram at Humane Cities, and as well as everywhere else, including YouTube and Instagram at Alex Williams YYC. This has been fun, grand, and groovy. Arden, do you have a tagline? Did you get a tagline last time? Do you have one this time?
No, at the end of my videos, I just say thank you.
Okay,
that's
cool.
the stay at home one.
Yeah, I think thank you works. Nick, take us away.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you so much. We appreciate you, and all of you people in the live chat. Thanks for hanging out. We always love seeing the comments. And yeah, somehow we have subtitles now. Mine is Nicholas Pickles, in reference to the wonderful guy who used to be on that top 10 game show that they used to have on YTV. Anyway, one more time, thank you everybody for watching. Two Wheels Good.
And feet first.